last June, the people of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. Why do you think this is such a significant event, and what do you think this means in terms of like the further dissolvement of the European Union?
Well, I think this has been a long time coming. Yeah, I think you can put in two parts. First of all, you can see the European Union's lack of transparency and democracy, and then secondly, you can see the economic foundation, which is neoconservative, right? Being neoconservative economic policy. And I think if you take the first, it's most people don't know that the European Union is a dictatorship. Legally, really, it is. It is a bunch of people in a suit sitting in a secret meetings called the Commission. Just like the Soviet Union had a bunch of commissars, European Union, where the laws are made, is in secret meetings with these commissars sitting in the Commission who have been appointed and not elected, and they're making all the decisions. The European Parliament, they can make a proposal, but only if, at least I believe, and don't get me wrong, but it's in the region of 25 members, and they have to be from 7 different countries. So obviously it's very few. I think it's something like 5% of all the legislation that has started from the Parliament. So the Parliament is really just a show. Just like in the Soviet Union, where you could vote, but there was only one party. So they had elections, but it was all for the Communist Party. You could only vote for the Communist Party. So it's a scam. And I think people didn't mind so much when there was an economic upturn. And the way they created the economic upturn to create this European Union was just like the central banks of the world, which are privately owned and privately controlled. That means that they decide the money supply. And if you have more money in the society, the economy goes up. If you take out money from the society, the economy goes down. So what they did was they just basically, at the same time, when they wanted people to join the European Union, they immediately increased the money supply. So made it very easy for people to borrow money in the banks because there was so much of it. And that, of course, some of it went into increased production, which it does when you have enough money supply. It's good for your economy. But if you increase it with more than 3 or 4%, then the rest has to go somewhere, and it goes into inflation. And since you can import stuff, then it doesn't go into necessarily all your food and appliances or whatever, but it goes mainly into equities and above all real estate. So that means that the way that the European Union was founded economically was a scam. It was people thinking that the European Union was good for the economy, when in fact the only thing they did was to make the real estate market go up 2 or 3 times, 200-300%. And that way you had a middle class who were making a lot of money, but it's all kind of just pumped up money from this kind of insider trading, you can say. So that is one thing. Then people don't focus so much. They think that, it's a good thing with the European Union, especially in Greece and Spain and Portugal. All of a sudden, they saw the house prices going up and a lot of new houses being built and a lot of jobs in the sector of construction. So, and then you had a European Union building a few motorways. So that was a huge support for European Union. So that is one of the things. But now it's getting increasingly clear that more and more people are realizing that all these problems we have with not helping the Greek people, for example, the problem in Greece where they simply allowed the country to go from no unemployment to 50% unemployment, where they allowed the Greek people, a low-paid Greek person was the lowest salary roughly was around €1,000 a month, and now it's 150. So you have this thing called a European community, and you allow the lowest people the poorest people in one of the poorest countries in Europe to take an 85% pay cut. Then it rings hollow in everybody's ears when you say it's a community. So that's one thing. We realize it's not a community. It's about the banks. It's about bailing out the banks, and it has nothing to do with bailing out the people. Remember, the banks also made good profits on this, on the stellar rise in the real estate market, and now then also it's also this way. It also turns out that it's a neocon project, and the neoconservative is that if you make the super rich, then some of it will trickle down. It's trickle down economics, and it just doesn't work. It is getting worse and worse. And there are plenty of books out that explains this. One of them is this Piketty, I think it's called Capital or something like that, where he shows that I think it's 62 people owns more money than the 3.5 billion poorest.
Right.
And that is amazing. But it's even more amazing if you realize that not included in those numbers are all the Panama numbers and the Cayman accounts and the Swiss number accounts. They are on top of that, right? So it's even worse. I mean, it is so horrible.
Yeah.
And the world is just immensely rich, and we are more and more people who don't believe them when they say that there's not enough for everybody. And we can see, the way that the multinational corporations are polluting the world. You know, the oil spill in the Mexican Gulf with, cutting down, I think it was 40% of the rainforest in Indonesia just to have a one-off profit on selling the trees and so on. It's just these things. These people are psychopaths. Running a multinational corporation is by definition a psychopathic institution. A corporation is a psychopath. They have no feelings, and they can't have a feeling. You can't even be mad on them. But the last thing you should do is to have stupid things like TTIP and all these international trade deals where you allow multinational corporations to have more democratic powers and more legal rights than human beings. It's insane. Yeah. And we are more and more people who are waking up to the fact that is it. And I think Brexit was a good point. It was just being too obvious. First of all, the Greek thing, that we knew, oh my God, they're treating Greek people like that. And then they looked to the other side of the sea between Ireland and England. Looked to Ireland. Ireland was pretty much debt free. When all of a sudden the European Union and the European Central Bank decided, by the way, we believe that the 6 million Irish people, or 7 million, how many they are, we decided that you should cover all the losses of all the foreign banks in Ireland. How they managed to get away with that? The way they did it was by strong-handing the Ministry of Finance from Ireland, gave him a piece of paper. Don't know whether he got a Swiss bank account as well, or whatever, whether they threatened his family or whatever they did, these evil people. And he signed just the Irish Minister of Finance, by signing it, he gave over, which was equivalent to 1 year's GDP of Ireland. So the Ireland went from a government debt of 15% of GDP to 115% by the stroke of a pen. And a lot of English people realized that was probably not too nice, even though that a lot of that money went to English banks, French banks and German banks. So even if the English people benefited from this, they realized this was not fair. And then they looked to Iceland, where they flipped the ECB and the Bank of England and the banksters, the middle finger. And Iceland is rocketing economically. They are doing so well. So these two things combined. And then the third thing, of course, is immigration. Now, we have a lot of political parties who are voting for killing and maiming and bombing and starting wars everywhere in our parliament in Denmark. And the same goes for your country and a lot of other nations in Europe. And what is bizarre is that while we are bombing these alleged enemies, the Muslims who are our alleged enemy, we also agree to take some refugees to pretend we are nice people. But the thing is, 85% of these young people of these refugees are men in the age between 18 and 28. And I mean, that's not a coincidence. If you have 60 million refugees, if you include all the internally displaced people as well, it's around 60 million, I read somewhere. And if we then take 1 million couldn't we have found a woman and some women and some children? It's not a coincidence, because my theory goes as this. If we had in Denmark our share of 1 million refugees, let's say we had 50,000 women and children, crying women, some of them bald from chemotherapy, from the uranium depleted bullets that they've been shooting down, and they got cancer from that. Some of them kids without eyes and missing legs and so on. We would stop the war immediately. If we had 50,000 women and children crying in the streets, we would stop the war. Instead, we would get 50,000 young men who are in their most sexual active age. I'm just saying it as it is, between 18 and 28. Obviously, they're frustrated, and they come from a society where women are, very kind of modest and so on, to a society where women are getting drunk every weekend, going around in very short skirts in the summer and so on. They are crazy, right? I mean, I would go crazy, of course, as well. I mean, if I was 21 years old in a country like that, coming from everybody.
Where I even discovered you, Mads, was from an episode of Sean Stone's Buzzsaw. And he had on a guest that I can't even remember the name of the guest, but his theory was that they're trying to, the Syrian refugee deal is on purpose in order to try to create some sort of civil war in Europe, some sort of race war, some sort of create, especially whenever the economy takes a dump too, it always goes towards the, hatred towards the immigrants. Well, and if there's on all the immigrants are these young men who are feeling, pretty bummed out about their lot in life, and they feel like they don't, get a fair shake at things, it's going to create some major hostility. I lived in Paris for 2 years, and I got to see it. When you're talking about the Arab contingent that's there and the African contingent that's there all together, and it's just a big hotbed of contention, because they don't mix too well. They don't assimilate into the culture, and the French don't allow it. So it's kind of a two-way street in many ways. So, it's these, who knows what these elites have been doing in terms of creating events to force migrations that we just seemingly think, it's just a war, they're refugees. But what if it really was an intentional thing to create some future? I'm not even sure what their intentions are.
Well, there's a lot of evidence pointing to that. It is planned, because you had all these male refugees handpicked from different camps in Turkey, given little pamphlets with instructions where to go, what to say, what to shout, and then 500 euros. So it's like a military operation. So you send in these around 900,000 young men in this age between 18 and 28. Some of them might have seen their family getting killed. I mean, it's. I mean, one thing is you kill all these people, and I want to stop that immediately. All wars, you know that. Yeah. But then to be so stupid to allow 1 million of your enemy young men into your country, I mean, that is really stupid. I mean, you can't be that stupid to do that, right? And also, my point before was, if you have 50,000 in Denmark, 50,000 young women and children who are crying, then nobody in Denmark would support the war. But if you have 50,000 young men who are bored and don't know what to do, and I must say, they behave impeccably. I think overall, it's surprising how little conflict we have. Right. It is really surprising how few incidents we have. So obviously, the refugees, even though they've been handpicked, they're not doing the job that Merkel and George Soros and all these other evil people decided to do. But if you are if you see young men hang around and maybe doing a few little things, then some people will say, well, we should have bombed these people some more. Look at them, they're so blah 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 blah. So there's a huge difference whether you see 50,000 young men going around in groups, maybe on a New Year's Eve in Cologne, harassing a few girls, which was probably a planned event. Probably they got paid to do it. I don't even think it was something they wanted to do. Right. But if you have that incident compared to 50,000 women and children, some of them handicapped and so on. There's a huge difference, and this is part of the game they're playing. So the Brexit was about realizing it's not a democracy. It was about realizing this neoconservatism that has been instigated by the banksters and the people in power and the oligarchs and the few families running the world. They don't like that either. But it's also about the immigration, that now enough is enough, right? They don't want to have more of that. And I mean, you have a working class in England who are not living, the life of their dreams, right? I mean, they're living in small flats. Maybe they can't even get a flat. Some of them might be homeless. They don't have enough. They can't pay their heating bill in the winter and so on. And then they see, immigrants coming in, getting benefits and flats and so on. And I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, trying to understand how these people react.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's good happening in this world, and there's some bad that's happening, and it seems to be escalating on both sides, to be honest with you. And Brexit was a really great thing. It's a great sign for humanity that, especially when we're seeing voting here in the United States being obviously rigged in terms of what's happened with the Democratic Party with Hillary Clinton. So to see a vote that happened with the people and it actually went to, against what the elites would have wanted, it's a good sign for humanity.